Hi, how are you? Today I thought we'd take a look at what I think is probably the easiest of any of the OBS-alike applications. This one is called PRISM Live Studio. So straight away, let's pull this up. Here we go. This is the web page. So what you're going to do, and this is available for PC, and interestingly, they have a mobile application as well, which we won't look at today, but check that out because that's very interesting. So you'll see in a second when we get this up and running, not only is it incredibly easy to use and very user-friendly, so for me it sits somewhere between OBS, which OBS Studio is kind of the de facto free streaming application for anybody that wants to go live to YouTube, Twitch, Facebook, etc. With either gaming content or some other form of content. And Streamlabs. Now, Streamlabs is a root, it's an offshoot of OBS, and is basically famous for being much simpler and easier to use. So it tends to be the first port of call for anybody interested in doing streaming that don't really want to get into the overhead of an application like OBS. The beauty of PRISM is not only is it an offshoot of the OBS open source code, but they've knitted in a load of their own unique features, which we'll also take a look at. So assuming that you have now downloaded and installed PRISM Live, let's take a look and see what we think. Just dropping that out of the way. This is PRISM Live. Now what I'm going to do is to double click, pull that up to it. In fact, I'm not going to do a full screen, and I'll show you why in a second. Let's just take up about 2/3 of the screen. So I'm sharing with you a second monitor with my little head down there. There we go. And I'm not actually streaming, just to let you know, I'm not using PRISM Live for this because I'm doing this as a live introduction. So I'm using Melon to stream my screen, so you'll see exactly how it looks to me as well. So this is what pops up on the screen. Let me just take my logo and pop it over there, which is something you can do in Melon because we don't want to hide anything here. And let me give you a quick run through an overview of what we see. So when you first launch PRISM, it will ask you to log in to at least one channel, streaming channel, whether that's YouTube, whether that's Twitch, or what have you. Now I have actually already added 2 of my channels. So I've got a YouTube channel here and I've got a Twitch channel here. Easy as anything to add more. Just click on the 3 dots and add channels. Gives you the options of Twitch, YouTube, Facebook. You can also add a custom RTMP as well, which is a little bit advanced, but essentially it allows you to connect another application via, it'll give you the settings, you put those into the settings requirements for streaming from this other application, and it will pull that screen in. That's useful for things like Zoom, Google Chat, and so on. So let's go ahead and hide that. As I've said, we've already got our 2 channels. Now there are things straight away that I love about this application. If we just stick with the channel information for a start. So you can obviously turn these off and on. So you can have as many of these as you want. And as far as I'm aware, there's no limit to how many of these you can stream to at the same time. That's actually quite difficult to do with OBS. I believe Streamlabs allows you to multiple stream, but this allows you to do it straight away. You can click on these little page icons and you pull up the information, the live information that will be presented as part of the stream. Really, really useful. Straight off the bat, we can tap in the title of our video or our stream. We can choose a category to stream by. If it's Twitch, for example, it could be talk shows and podcasts. There we go. And it automatically chooses the correct server as well. In my case, I'm in London, but of course, if that doesn't ring with where you are, you can change that to wherever you want to be. Okay to that. Same thing over here with YouTube. Click on this, choose whether it's going to be a new one or you're going to use the details of an existing or a previous one. Put in your title, what its privacy, is it public, is it unlisted, is it private? You can choose again what your category is going to be, the description, latency, and whether it's made for kids. So it captures most of the live information settings for YouTube as well, which is absolutely brilliant. You also have an option to cut and paste or copy the link for your channel, which you can then go paste, and also you can click the 3 dots and disconnect if you want to. Now you can see here there are 2 arrows, left and right. Those essentially are inactive because I only have 2 channels. But if I'd set up multiple accounts, multiple YouTube accounts, multiple Twitch accounts, multiple Facebook accounts, etc., then those would be used to scroll through that list. Then we have a go live or a record option. So if you don't want to stream live to YouTube, you just want to create a recording, then you can use the recording setting. Now, the rest of this area below that section is familiar if you've ever used Streamlabs or OBS. It's, as I've said, basically built upon the same engine. And then we have a vertical column of items over on the right-hand side, and these are unique options to this application, and they definitely are worth looking at. But we'll come back to those in a second. For now, let's have a quick look at these boxes down here. So we have our scenes. That is essentially, if you like, what you see on the entire screen. The best way of describing a scene is to imagine your favorite YouTube streamer or Twitch streamer. They may start with a screen where they welcome you to the game stream that they're about to take part in, and then they'll go to another screen where they'll shrink down into the corner, have the chat up in the maybe the top right corner, and have the game that they're about to stream in the background. So each of those cutaways is into a new scene, and that's where you create those. Then you have sources. These are the elements that sit within each scene. So we mentioned our intro scene might have my camera, maybe a background of some description. So there's 2 elements straight away, the camera and the background. We'd also want to pull in the microphone. Automatically, you can see down the bottom right hand side in the audio mixer there, as I'm talking, it's actually recording or at least pulling that audio in as well. But if you're unsure, you can add an audio source. So the sources are the elements that build up the page, and we'll create a quick scene in a second to show how easy that is. And then, as I've just mentioned, the audio mixer, where you will see a VU meter, volume meter for each audio source, audio input, so that you know that your mic is working or that the game is playing correctly and can be heard by your audience. So let's go ahead before we introduce you to the unique features, and just also quickly down the bottom here, you'll be able to see, unfortunately it's a little bit small on the screen that I'm sharing this with you on, but you'll see that there is actually a status bar that shows you things like the resolution and frame rate that you're streaming to, what overload there is on your computer, your CPU. In this case, it's 0.2%. It's roughly, it says 9.7% overall. The GPU, which is your graphics card, and that's again saying about 25% is being allocated, but it's got an overhead of about 0.4%, so it's negligible. Frame drops, that will only matter when you actually stream, and that will signify there's an issue with the stream itself. If you're seeing lots of dropped frames, you need to increase your bit rate, and we may or may not cover that here, but essentially the bit rate for Twitch and YouTube, if you're going to be streaming at about 1920 1080, which is what this is, and somewhere around 6,000 bits per second is going to probably be good enough for what you need. The one downside to this application, which I've discovered, is that it will only stream at 1080p. So if you wanted do a higher level, higher rate quality video stream, maybe 1440, which is my favorite, or if you want to really push the boat out and your computer can handle it 4K, you're out of luck here and you need to look at those others. But I believe this is a great entry level option, and to be fair, for most people 1080 is fine, particularly as the audience that will actually be watching your video probably be watching it on a mobile device or on a tablet, and actually those kinds of higher resolutions are not that appropriate for them. So that's all good. And what we'll do is we will quickly create a scene. So it's given us a scene initially, and what we'll do is we'll leave that as it is. If I click the plus icon, I can create another scene. We'll call that one intro. And as you see, it's piled it down here. If I want to visually move my intro before the scene, I can just drag it there. And that helps me visually to see that the intro is the first scene that I'm likely to run with, and scene one, which is the one that was automatically created by default. And what we'll do is we'll change its name. We'll call it something like gaming. So we would have our intro followed by gaming, and then maybe an outro as well at the end of your stream, just to thank everybody for coming. So we'll create that. That's where you would maybe have some links for them to go and sign up to your Patreon or similar. So let's go back to our intro. And the other thing while we're in scenes is that this little kind of infinity symbol here gives you an option to choose how you want to transition between each scene. So right now, I think by default it chooses cut, so you just go from one to the other straight away. But you can choose to fade, so it'll be a nice fade between scenes. And if I hit the plus key, I get some other options in here as well. I can swipe it across, I can slide it, I can create a stinger. A stinger is a separate video that you would import, create elsewhere, bring it in. Maybe it has your logo spinning around between scenes, that kind of a thing. Fade to color, self-evident. And Luma wipe, which typically is a kind of graphical wipe across the scenes. It might be a starburst or a square that you move from one to the other. So that can be quite fun as well. I would just recommend playing with these. And you can, of course, increase or decrease the duration. 300 milliseconds is the default for all of these kinds of applications, but you can make the thing last longer by increasing the duration, or have it happen faster by decreasing the duration. And of course, you can get rid of those added scene switching transitions if you want to, using the plus and the minus. We'll leave it on fade, and we'll come across to sources. So we can either right click, and there's some options in here for various bits and pieces. Most importantly, to start things off, we'll hit the plus. This pulls up initially a fairly intimidating window of options, but if you look at these and break them down, we have in fact got 3 vertical columns. The first one, default. These are standard source panels, source widgets, if you like, that you would add into your scene. And these are fairly common ones that you would find in OBS or Streamlabs. They've been given some nice little icons. They've been reworded to make them a little less intimidating. And then on the right-hand side, we have scene items that are unique to PRISM. Each one of these needs exploring, and we'll have a look at most of them. But PRISM Mobile, and it tells you on the right-hand column what each of these does. PRISM Mobile allows you to use the PRISM Mobile app's camera as a web camera for your PC. So even if you don't have a webcam, you can install PRISM Mobile, the application for iPhone and I believe Android, and use your camera to stream directly into PRISM on your PC as your default camera. Now, in actual fact, and I've said to people in the past who are using a fairly cheap webcam, that actually using your phone, which has all modern smartphones have cameras that are infinitely better quality than any available webcam. I mean, you're up to DSLR quality, which is what I'm using here. So it's actually a really good idea, if you can, to use your camera phone. All you need is some sort of a support or a grip. You can focus it on yourself and then use PRISM Mobile, in this case, to stream the camera straight into your scene, which is an amazing thing. We've got text templates, which, as you can see here, allow you to use animated text templates. So a lower third, for example, which is what it's showing here, similar to what you would see in some of the streaming applications, and the one I'm using over here, Melon, which has this kind of thing. And you can drop that in and use that to maybe put up your name or your guest's name into a scene. So we have PRISM Chat. This will allow you to put Twitch, I think it's mainly Twitch chat, straight over the top of your scene, which is really, really good. PRISM stickers, you can see here how these look. The thing, what you want to do with these is, if you drop them onto your scene, they're going to play repeatedly. So you'll need to do a little bit of direction with your video and turn them off and on as they come and go. Similarly, Giphy stickers. You can even have your own music playlist, obviously making sure that it is free of copyright usage, that you have any rights to use it. But if you use something like Pretzel, which is free to use in its basic form, you can actually have never-ending streaming music. Go and check Pretzel out. It's my preferred musical playlist application of choice. An audio visualizer, which will work to any audio noise that comes in, so it's a visual of the sound. Maybe have some use, who knows. A background template. There are hundreds of these, excuse me, which will allow you to have a lovely background graphic or animation. And a clock widget. So if you've got a countdown that you're wanting to put over your intro, maybe you want to allow 5 minutes to grab some audience before you go live, shove this little puppy in. So these are unique to PRISM, and they're editable and very highly usable. So the first thing we're going to add is the webcam, the video capture device. This is my camera, essentially. Click OK. We'll call it Rokk Camera. We can change the name, obviously. We can add an existing source if we already had one, and we can ensure that it's visible. So we're going to use Snap Camera here. Here we go. And we can make it deactivated when not showing. That can save some resource. If it's only going to live in one of your scenes, for example, then you may want to turn it off. In this case, we're going to have a camera running on all the scenes, and we're going to leave everything else as it is. Actually, we've got the outro working here, but that's fine. So we've got our camera. Let's just if we press the Alt key or the Option key, we can hit these little nodes and shrink it down as well. You'll see there's probably a little bit of out of sync here going on, but that's all fine. That won't be the case when you stream. And we'll drag that down and make it a little bit smaller, maybe there. Now we'll add a new scene. This time we're going to add a background, and we could just import a graphic if we wanted to, or we could pull in a monitor if you've got a second monitor, or another window. Even if it's hidden down, if you pushed it down in your monitor, you can do that. You can pull in an image, color panel, anything you like, and of course game. So if you're running a game, you can import the game. We would do that on our gaming screen. In this case, we're going to use one of the PRISM features, which is background template. We're going to click OK. We're going to leave its name, and then we'll get a choice of backgrounds here. And you can upload your own background if you want to by hitting that plus key. You can import these backgrounds that are all nice and static. They're not in any way animated, or you can use these animated ones, which I think are fantastic. You don't see their animation at this level, but when we add one, so that one looks really nice, you'll see here the actual effect. Each one of these is really high quality, and of course they're all copyright free. It's absolutely stunning. And there's snow, 2 lots of snow. twinkly stars. It doesn't look like a lot's going on, but I think they twinkle, and there's a little shooting star from time to time. This is the nighttime version. That's the dusk version, and there we go with our shooting stars. So different colors. You can have all sorts going on here, or you can tick the motion off button and completely have these as statics, like so, which is great. But we'll go with an animation. How about this lovely star field? Now, we've lost our camera. Not a problem. You'll see down here in sources, they are layered. So if you imagine that the top most in the list is the one that is closest to you, if you imagine lots of layers of paper. So what we want to do is drag that, just click and drag it below Rokk camera, and there he is, he's back again. Now let's just add one final scene to our outro. We're kind of doing this in a bit reverse, but that's all good. Text, and this is going to be goodbye, because that's kind of what you're going to say to people. And here we go. We can add thanks for watching, for example. Choose a different font. My personal favorite is Roboto, which will be here because it's everywhere. Let's go for medium, and we'll click OK. We can transform it uppercase or lowercase, choose the color that we want to have. Let's have a quick look and see. There it is. It's very tiny up in the top. So we're going to go back up to our font and choose a bigger number. There we go. Let's go with a 144. That's much bigger. And opacity, if you wish to take its transparency down. You can even add a color gradient. These are all kind of baked in OBS features, so there's nothing particularly new here. The alignment, so if it's left, center, or right, depending on if you are creating lots of different sentences or lines of text. And it's vertical alignment, so we'll go with center. And the rest of it is kind of advanced stuff that we don't really want to get into for now. So let's just, we'll pull that down maybe there. And that will be us going, thank you for watching, folks. Hope you've enjoyed the show, etc., etc. So that's the outro. Let's go back to the intro. Now we can see the fade that we set up initially. Let's create some sources for the intro. Now here we can click on our camera again, and you'll see this time that it already has the Rokk camera. So if we tick or click add existing and pop that on, no idea why that isn't showing. Oh, we didn't select it. There we go. Right. So here we have, if you see even though we've got this one cropped and positioned to the right of the screen, in our intro it's brought it in its raw form, so we can add different cropping, make it a different size if we want to. So let's leave it there. Let's see what we've got here. Let's have a look at the text templates from our good friends PRISM. We'll call this lower third, which is where we'll put our intro name. So here we go. We have a ton of different types, and we've even got things like here where you can add in the subscribe if you wanted to, for example, which is pretty cool. We'll do that in a second. We've got captions that can come over the top, and little elements that you can add in, and you can at the moment they're fairly limited, but they'll be coming. And here you can see how you can also change all of the detail. So let's go for a caption, and we're going to go for that lower third, which I think looks awesome. And here we would put Rokk as the top, and maybe we're going to put our whoops, hitting the wrong key here. One of these there it is. I always get these wrong. Let's put our Twitter handle in there as a lower third, and I believe here you can mess about with all the various options. So we've got white text on color settings, black text, beg your pardon, on a white background, and then a black outline. So what I think we'll do is we'll change that to a red. There we go. Oh, it's actually black in the values down here. So that's because you need to push that all the way to the top. And then there we go. Perfect. Let's OK that. And it's tiny, isn't it? Let's make it bigger. Whoops. We are that one. There we go. I think what we need to do is change the font size. That's the problem here. We'll make it pretty big, which means the box is going to be massive, but we can shrink that box down now that we know what we're working with. Now this is going to animate forever. So as I was saying earlier about things like the stickers and the GIFs and stuff, what you'll probably want to do is once it's come in and gone, "Hi, I'm Rokk," that Rokk show, is you'll probably want to turn it off just by simply clicking the visibility icon next to the scene, which is that little eye down there. And if we just click that, it goes. Alternatively, if you want to, you can turn off your motion. Now, I'd love to see them in the future having this work where you could maybe tell them how often you want that to happen. So if we flick between the two, there's our lower third, there's our camera, there's us saying hello, how are you? We could also add in the gaming screen that we're going to work with in a minute. Now in this case, we'll capture a window. There we go, and we'll call this game screen. And what we're going to do is we're going to go and actually I haven't got one set up. Let me quickly do that. That will be a cut on the video. There we go. Delete that. So let's add a game screen. We'll just have this small on our intro. Now, I'm actually going to use Google Stadia in this instance, which is a cloud-based gaming platform, which means it lives in a web browser. So we're not going to use the game option. We're not running a game specifically on this computer, although you could, and this will capture it for you. We're not going to take a second monitor screen because right now I've got the application that I'm using to create this video. What we're going to do is choose window capture, and we're going to call this game screen. And there it is. So choose Stadia, play Stadia, turn off. Up to you, but I like to, we're not demonstrating the platform, we're playing a game. So let's turn off the ability to capture the cursor and we'll click OK. Now this is too big for the screen. And the reason for that is that if you remember, we are streaming from from PRISM at 1080p. So and the game itself is sitting on a 4K monitor. So all I'm going to do, this is really easy, is right click, come down to transform and fit to screen, and you'll see it also has Control F as a keyboard shortcut for that. Pop, there it goes. Again, we've hidden everything below this, but it doesn't matter because actually in this case what we intend to do is shrink this right down, pop it up in the top left corner so that this tells people what we're going to do, and I would be introducing myself and the game that we're about to play in our initial screen. Then we would fade across to gaming. Now we've created all the elements now that we need for this screen. So all we have to do is go to sources. Let's pick up our camera, choose the Rokk camera. There it is. This time though, we're going to use our Alt key or our Option key, crop in the little fella, get rid of any spurious edges. I personally prefer to use a green screen and cut everything around here, but I'm using this over the other side. So for now, we'll leave this as it is and we'll shrink it down. Not everybody has that feature anyway. And we'll add the window capture, remembering that we already have game screen. So click add existing and the actual source itself, that pops it there. It's still too big. Don't forget, we go back into transform or control F, fit to screen, and we want to grab that and drag it behind the camera so that the camera is on the front. And there we are, we're ready to go. Now there's some stuff that we could add into this screen as well. If we were particularly, for example, streaming to Twitch, then we could choose PRISM Chat and click OK. And we'll call this Twitch Chat. I think this only works for Twitch, which is why I'm saying this. Choose the look that we want. Let's go with, shows you at the top here how this looks. No massive difference between most of them. You can reduce the font size and you can add some filters as well. We'll choose that one for now. Let's see, we'll pop it over. I'll tell you what we'll do. We will pop it above my camera. Now, rather than grabbing the edge and shrinking this down, which is going to make the font size so small that most people won't be able to read it. And to be fair, if they're watching this on a mobile, they're not going to be able to anyway. What we can do is with our Option key or Alt key, grab this bottom one and just crop it up like this. So we're still seeing the chat. By the way, it's showing you an example chat. I'm not live. I never get that kind of activity in my chats, but it's really useful to see how that's going to look. And when you go live, that will be replaced. So that would sit above the camera, which is pretty cool. And of course, you can, crop it in again if you want to, do what you want with that. So let's have a look. Let's go back to our intro. There we go. Wonderful stuff. Then into our game and then across to our outro, which is awesome stuff. There was one other thing, if you remember, we talked about that you would probably have in a game streaming scenario, and that will be some sort of a countdown. So we'll just click a new one. We'll call it countdown. That's going to go at the end. So we're going to drag that before intro, and then we can just go with our sources. I'm going to find maybe one of our virtual backgrounds. They're pretty cool, aren't they? Let's use the one we've already got. So there's some consistency. There it goes. And now we're going to add a clock widget. We'll leave it as clock widget. Its name says it all, really. Now we've got some options, which are pretty cool. So we can choose any one of these presets, and we can also go in and again make our own changes. So we can change current time, stream time. So if you want to show people how long you've been streaming for, a timer. So that would be the one really that we want. And you would set how long you want your timer to run for. So let's say we're going to go with a 2-minute timer. When it ends, this is really cool. You can have it put up a sound effect. So we could have, I don't know, a doorbell, for example. And you can also, I think, that's to start it off. There we go. Yeah. And then obviously you can change the text color and so on. So that's all pretty cool. So there's our clock. And if we right click on the widget down here, we can come up to timer control and start it. Now you want to do that probably after you've hit go live up here, which is obviously when you're ready to go live, and then that will start the clock off. So you're going to sit there and you're going to watch that clock until it gets down to 2 minutes. When it has, it's going to go ding dong or whatever the noise, the audio sound effect that you've chosen, and it will then come across to our intro. We'll do all of our thing. We'll then select gaming as our next source, and then once we've streamed, we'll click our outro, and then when we're all done up there and up here it will say end stream. We'll click end stream. Ta-da, we've done it. Everything is live and has been working a treat. So while we are finishing up, let's have a quick look at these options down the right hand side, because I think these are really great. Now some of these are going to be very familiar from what we were looking at just a second ago. Let's go to that screen and hide the chat and the game screen. There we go. So on the right hand side, as you can see, we've got avatar here from actually from Twitch that I've logged in using. So I've created Twitch as my login whenever I come into Prism. That's how I'm going to log in. And then let's run down these from top to bottom. So the first one, if you are familiar with OBS or Streamlabs, you'll notice that we have essentially the two, a studio option on the left and a live option on the right. Now what this does and what this allows you to do is actually to place items or view items on the left hand side without it affecting your actual live stream. Really cool if you want to create, for example, a new source item. Let's say it's going to be a new text box, for example. We'll just leave it as text in here, and then we can put hello world, why not? Now the great thing is that in the studio over here, and let's assume that we are actually live while we're doing this, we can create this, mess about with it, do whatever we want to do, but it is not going to show up over here until we click this button to apply it to our live stream. Absolutely brilliant. Again, we could maybe hide that text box, and until we hit the apply button, it stays in that screen. So when we come on to some of these items in a second, that's going to become really useful. So let's leave those two screens there. The next one down is a chat window. Now this is the live chat that you see when you go live. And in this case, we're seeing two icons, Twitch and YouTube, because those are the two platforms up here, the applications that I've set us up to stream to. And if I click Twitch, what it will do, it hasn't done for me because I've already set it up, is it'll ask you to authorize the account, make sure that you're happy to do that. You can talk to folk can talk to you, and then that will show up all the way down there. And of course, this will be as well duplicated in the gaming window by that little Twitch chat widget that we've set up over there. So really useful if you want to actually type messages in there, but to keep an eye on things as well. And then YouTube. So this won't show up until you go live with YouTube, but once you do go live, again, you'll see all of your chat, and you'll see the and you'll be able to reply to them as well. Okay, and you can use this, as we've seen, to add the chat as a widget. So if you haven't done that already, you can do that here as well. So that's really cool. So I love that feature. It allows you to interact with your audience. Next down, alerts. This might be that, as far as I'm aware, in any case, this could be that somebody has donated something to you, given you something online, or maybe it's simply telling you that you're no longer live. But you can shrink these, all of these little panels can be resized if you want to, so you can actually add multiple panels on the side of the PRISM Live application. Next up, virtual camera. Now, what this allows you to do is everything that you create in Prism can show up in any other application as a camera source. So if you are using Melon or Streamyard or Restream or even OBS or even Streamlabs, you can actually do all of your stuff over here and have it as a camera on the application that you're working on. So it's a way to, if you like, have the OBS or Prism experience whilst using the application that you typically use for this kind of thing, just by having it as a virtual camera, which is great. Now that's actually on, and obviously you can turn it off. So here it is on. I can then go to my other application and choose Prism as the camera. We'll do that right now. And believe it or not, what we're seeing, and we can prove this, if I go to full screen here, You'll see this is, sorry, let's hide that one, beg your pardon, or hide that one, will pull me up. Yeah, sure, that is you, Rokk. Yes, it is. There's the chat. So I am literally now, as I select each of these options, the camera that I'm using in this application is the virtual camera streaming out of PRISM. So a great way to control all the elements of your video without, and then using your chosen platform like Restream or Streamyard or Melon in my case, to actually then send it all on to the big, wide, wonderful web. So let me choose my original camera again, which was in fact camera NVIDIA. There we go. And shrink me down. There we go. So we're back to where we were. Absolutely brilliant feature. Next up, and I'm just going to hide this so we get to see this a bit bigger as well. You can actually reduce these panels, you see. So if you want to see more going on, particularly if you've only got one or two scenes and a couple of sources, that's absolutely fine. Now next up is the beauty effect. What this does is when you send your camera across, or you use your cross, if you hit beauty effects, you can actually adjust how you look. And if you watch on the big screen over there, if I put my face to the camera, you'll see that makes my face a little bit sharper. This makes it cuter by making my eyes bigger, and that takes it back to natural. And then you have a whole bunch of options here that you can use to adjust things. So I can make my nose slightly fatter or slightly thinner. If you're vain, that's it's fairly useful. You can make your eyes bigger or smaller. It's subtle, I'm afraid. You may not pick it up watching the screen over there, but it genuinely works. So it just allows you to play around with, if you're not very happy with the shape of your face, I don't have a massive problem with mine, to be honest, then you can use this to there you go, widen out your cheeks or thin your cheeks. So you could use all of this to make you look about 10 years younger, which I'll do right now. So that's maximum. And if I turn off beauty effects, there we go, you can see how my face then returns to its normal shape. So again, unique little feature, quite fun. The next one is our friend, the virtual background. Now, the thing about using virtual background is this will affect just your camera. So if you use the virtual background as a source, it goes into the background of the whole application. If you use it here on the right-hand side on this little panel, then it will only affect the camera. And there we go. It does a fairly good job, I have to say, of removing the background. You can even just use this if you wanted to show your transparent background when you're gaming. But of course, everything that we have used so far, we can use, and this only applies to the camera. So let's choose a different one. Let's choose that one. And just to prove that this is happening. And you can also make the edges a bit more blurry. That could be quite useful as well. And as before, you can turn off the motion. Let's just, we'll go with that as it is, and we'll hide this down. And just to prove that that's what's happening here, let's have a look at one of the other screens. And there you go. There's my little head, transparent against the against that animation we just popped in. And if we, let's say we put our game screen back up and hide the PRISM chat, nobody needs to see that, and then go back to our virtual background and remove it completely, close that down, and now we have our transparency. So that's built into PRISM Live. I tend to use NVIDIA Broadcast to achieve this. It has a slightly nicer edge to it. But if you don't have a PC that can run NVIDIA Broadcast, and that's essentially a non-NVIDIA GPU, or maybe a slightly older, or maybe even a laptop, then you could use PRISM, let it do its job for you, cut the background out. Absolutely superb. Next up, we have a PRISM sticker. These are pretty cool. So it will literally overlay a sticker, as you can see. Now that will keep going forever, and you can resize it. So what you would want to do is just to untick the visibility icon, so that you only bring that up when you want to. So for example, let's have a look at all of them, because that's just recently used. Some of these are lovely. So if we pop the hearts up, someone's just donated to you or said something really nice and you want to say thank you. So, and you can rename these as well. Just double click and we've got our animation loop. Do that for a second or two and then hide it and then get back to playing the game. Great stuff. We have a similar thing with stickers. My particular favorite is this old fella. So what I love is pop him over the top of me here, and then when I mention my age, which I tend to do whenever there's a stream on, I can pull him up and then hide him again. So that's built in. Turn off that, they all go. Playlist, musical playlist. So here you can add source, so you can import music. Here we go, you can add and edit files, and that will pull up any of your favorite tracks. Bearing in mind, really important, if you do not have the rights to play the music, your video will get pulled and you could risk losing the channel. So make sure whatever music you choose is royalty free. My big tip of the day is go along to YouTube, go to your YouTube studio. Down the bottom left hand corner is an option to use Google Music and download those files, pop them into a folder, add them into here, play away to your heart's content. At the top you will have a musical player where you can play, choose different tracks, keep it looped, etc. And on the left, in the audio mixer down here, you will be able to choose the level of the sound. So if it's too loud, you can just turn that down, which it will be to begin with. And then finally, connect the mobile app, which we've seen earlier, which will allow you to use your camera phone, which is absolutely superb, and all sorts of stuff there to get you going, to set that up and get you running. And then you can use your phone, the application, the PRISM application on your mobile device as your camera. So there you go. That for me is it's a whistle-stop tour of PRISM. There's so much to this application. If you've been using StreamYard, then you'll find most of what that does, this does. Not StreamYard, I beg your pardon. If you've been using Streamlabs, you'll find that what that does, this does as well, pretty much. Has its own features. It is a standalone application. It's produced by Nava, who also have a channel, I believe, that you can stream to. So check that out. But I personally think this is a great application to get you up and running. And hopefully this has formed a bit of a tutorial for you as well to make that happen. I have been Rokk. Thank you very much indeed. I hope you've enjoyed the video, and stay tuned for more how-tos and reviews in the near future. Rokk out.